Assalamu alaikum. Before the end of last year, I said the following about Bitcoin. I am super bullish on Bitcoin. I obviously think it is a halal investment to make, and I've already started buying Bitcoin. Since making that video, I think the fundamentals of Bitcoin have actually improved. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why I think the fundamentals of Bitcoin have improved. And at the end, I'm going to give you my price prediction for Bitcoin at the end of 2021. Number one, China's out. On June 21st, the People's Bank of China instructed Chinese banks to shut down the accounts of individuals involved in crypto transactions. Earlier, the Chinese government also announced a crackdown on crypto mining. We know this had nothing to do with the environment because the Chinese crackdown afforded no exceptions for miners that were using renewable energy. Rather than preserving the environment, this crackdown had everything to do with the Chinese state's insecurity regarding true private ownership and anything it can't exercise full control over. The latest Chinese crackdown is rather impactful for the Bitcoin landscape, considering at the time Chinese mining pools were responsible for an estimated 50% of global Bitcoin processing power in the past 12 months. What's more, 70% of Bitcoin mining capacity was in China, and after the latest crackdown, more than 90% of Chinese miners have shut down their operations. Despite the downward impact this development has had on Bitcoin's price in the short term, in the long term, the decoupling of China and Bitcoin is ultimately a positive, in my view, for Bitcoin and the world because it reinforces Bitcoin's image as a truly independent store of value. It's noteworthy here that the China events and resulting migration of miners have highlighted the robustness of the Bitcoin network, as during this entire period, the Bitcoin network stayed live for basically 100% of the time. In fact, the last downtime experienced by Bitcoin was in 2013 and lasted for only 6 hours. I can think of very few entities on Earth that are this robust, and in the face of an attack from the Chinese state, no less. The second reason why I think Bitcoin's fundamentals have improved is that Bitcoin is going to be used as legal tender for the first time ever. In June, El Salvador passed a law that would make Bitcoin legal tender. Being legal tender means that if Bitcoin is offered as a means of payment in this country, the seller must accept it. It also means El Salvadorians won't have to pay capital gains on their Bitcoin. Put differently, Bitcoin is now the official currency of a sovereign country, albeit a small one. I believe El Salvador's experiment with Bitcoin will likely be rife with difficulties in implementation and have many hiccups along the way. Being first often comes at a heavy cost. However, I think this experiment will accelerate development of Bitcoin, especially layer 2 solutions such as the Lightning Network that are designed to enable smaller transactions quickly and seamlessly. Eventually, this experiment will answer a lot of questions about the usefulness of Bitcoin, and if successful, will encourage other countries to follow in El Salvador's footsteps. And who knows, we may see central banks using Bitcoin as a reserve currency in place of gold. Imagine what something like that would do for the price of Bitcoin. The third reason is inflation. The annual U.S. inflation rate, which is a measure of consumer prices, increased to 5.4% in June, a 13-year high, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. The Federal Reserve in the U.S. has to continue to keep interest rates low in order to not stifle growth in the economy and keep unemployment from rising. U.S. officials have said rate hikes would likely not come before 2023. So inflation is likely to remain a problem, not just in the US, but for many other parts of the world who have it much worse. According to one estimate, 1.2 billion people live under double-digit inflation. So if you're saving money and you're seeing prices rising continuously, you're not going to want to keep your money in cash. You're going to want to keep it in an appreciating asset that's rising in price faster than general prices are rising. It's becoming increasingly hard to find any good deals on any assets. Stocks, real estate, commodities, they're all up. So what is left? It follows from this, in my mind at least, that demand for Bitcoin as an incorruptible store of wealth is going to become stronger and stronger the more obvious the corruption of traditional currencies becomes. When people are using the US dollar to store their wealth and the supply of US dollars grows by 20% in 2020 alone, that is 4 trillion more dollars get created, people are going to increasingly question whether they should trust the dollar. More specifically, if they should trust those who control the dollar's supply to preserve their wealth. The more time goes on without Bitcoin's supply being manipulated or the Bitcoin ledger being hacked or corrupted, the stronger the case for saving money in Bitcoin becomes. In an environment of persistent high inflation, which is what I think the coming economic period looks like, I predict Bitcoin will perform very well. The fourth reason why I think the fundamentals of Bitcoin are improving is its energy consumption. One of the causes for the recent drop in Bitcoin's price was a tweet from the CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk, wherein he announced Tesla would stop accepting Bitcoin because its energy consumption was too high and not enough renewable sources of energy like wind and solar were being used in its mining. He mentioned that if the share of renewables exceeded 50%, he would authorize Tesla to restart accepting Bitcoin as payment. The Bitcoin Mining Council recently published its first quarterly report wherein it claimed that 67% of North American Bitcoin mining used renewable energy. The council estimated the share of renewables in the global Bitcoin mining industry to be around 56% at the end of the second quarter of 2021, making it one of the greenest industries in the world. This recent gain in the share of renewables is likely a result of Chinese miners who relied heavily on coal as a source of energy for their mining, shutting down after the recent Chinese government crackdown. This greener Bitcoin will likely attract more environmentally conscious investors who may have shied away from Bitcoin because of its perceived negative impact on the environment. The fifth reason why I am bullish on the fundamentals of Bitcoin are the catalysts that I see on the horizon. Building off the last point, I expect Tesla to announce the resumption of accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment after its environmental impact has been verified. The CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, recently announced they were working on a hardware wallet where people can store their Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. He also emphasized that Bitcoin is going to be a big part of Twitter's future. ARK Invest recently filed an application for a Bitcoin ETF, which I think is just a matter of time before it gets approved. And I expect other high-profile companies not on our radar currently will gradually start to enter the Bitcoin space with different offerings. These developments promise to make Bitcoin more accessible and more practical for a larger number of people, which should translate into higher and higher prices for this crypto asset. The biggest threat to Bitcoin remains, in my opinion, coordinated government attacks against this crypto asset, but in light of the toughness that the Bitcoin network has displayed in the face of the most recent Chinese government attack, my confidence in the resilience of the Bitcoin network has only increased. So I remain very bullish on the prospects of Bitcoin to become the world's digital reserve currency, even more so than I was at the beginning of the year. As for my price prediction for Bitcoin at the end of 2021, based on the average annualized return of Bitcoin since its inception and the standard deviation of returns that Bitcoin has experienced, along with the catalysts that I see on the horizon, which I think are probable, my prediction for the price of Bitcoin is as follows. There is a 20% chance that the price of Bitcoin is below the low 30s by the end of 2021. There's a 50% chance that the price of Bitcoin is above $55,000 by the end of 2021. And I see a 20% chance that the price of Bitcoin is above $70,000 by the end of 2021. In fact, I would not be shocked if we saw a price that is close to $100,000 for Bitcoin by the end of 2021. So that was my prediction. Obviously, I may be wrong. Make sure to do your own due diligence before you make any investment decisions. This was not meant as personalized investment advice. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate a like. subscribe for more content like this. Make sure to visit practical-islamicfinance.com where you can see all my latest insights. And until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.